Salem, the witch city, has become the spooky capital of the world, generating nearly $140 million and supporting over 1,000 jobs last year alone. There's been a massive wave of spooky souls visiting Salem, and for the record, yes, I am jealous, but also I'm genuinely happy to see so many people embracing their best spooky life. And still, I have a confession. For the so-called spooky queen I'm supposed to be, I didn't actually know what really happened there. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know. Hello? It's Tituba, one of the accused witches, and she's ready to set the record straight. Hey Ghoster Squad, welcome back to our spooky oasis. I'm Mandy Spooks and I live my best spooky life so that you can too. Every Sunday we enter the haunted line, uncovering ghost stories, urban legends, and spooky origins behind the things we love and fear the most. I want to say thank you so much for your support on the first episode, and I'm over the moon about getting into even more spooky stories with you ghouls. So be sure to hit subscribe if you dare, because next week we're getting into our first chilling ghost story. So grab your spooky mug and get cozy, because today we're heading to Salem, the town that helped birth our entire spooky aesthetic. But before we talk haunted inns, witch shops, or ghost tours, we need to talk about the real fear that cursed Salem long before it became iconic. Because you can't understand the ghost stories until you hear the tragedy that started it all. I have loved Salem from afar for a long time. The aesthetic, the magic, the cozy ambiance, but I never took the time to actually learn about the Salem Witch Trials, and that feels shameful. Like a lot of people, I let the foggy graveyards and witchy vibes distract me from the fact that Salem's spooky charm is built on something much heavier. But when I finally sat down to learn the truth, let's just say I fell down a massive Salem rabbit hole. I have watched so many documentaries and read so many articles, I'm surprised I haven't dreamt about it. There are plenty of Salem ghost stories brewing, but to understand them, we have to go back to where it all began. The Salem Witch Trials took place in 1692 in the Puritan colony of Massachusetts, a society defined by religious extremism, superstition, and rigid control. It began with two young girls, Betty Paris and Abigail Williams, who began experiencing violent fits and strange behavior. Screaming, contorting, crawling under furniture. When doctors couldn't find a physical cause, they claimed it had to be the devil's work. The girls, under pressure, accused 3 women of afflicting them. Tituba, an enslaved woman from Barbados, Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, who rarely attended church and challenged societal expectations. 3 women, all of whom existed outside Puritan norms. The accusations quickly snowballed. By the end, more than 200 people had been accused. Some of the accused, like Tituba, did confess to practicing witchcraft. She claimed the devil came to her, made her sign his book, and described seeing other witches flying in the air. But most historians agree her confession was likely a survival strategy. Tituba was enslaved, she had no power, and by confessing and accusing others, she avoided execution. In fact, more than 50 people confessed during the trials. Why? Because refusing to confess often meant hanging. But if you admitted to being a witch, no matter how wild the story, you were more likely to live. Most of the people who died were the ones who stayed true to their innocence. 20 were executed, 19 by hanging at Proctor's Ledge, and 1, Giles Corey, was pressed to death over 2 days for refusing to enter a plea. His final words were said to be, "More weight." Among the executed was Reverend George Burroughs, the only minister convicted during the trials. At his execution, he recited the Lord's Prayer flawlessly, something thought to be impossible for a witch. This moment reportedly shocked the crowd, but Cotton Mather, a prominent Puritan clergyman, declared that the devil could appear as an angel of light to dismiss their doubts. Many people confessed to impossible crimes just to save themselves. Others were turned in by jealous or fearful neighbors seeking revenge, property, or protection. These were not witches. They were scapegoats, victims of panic, politics, and deep societal fear. Tragically, most of the court records were later lost or deliberately destroyed, leaving gaps in our understanding of what was said and done at the time. And as if that weren't enough, the victims were denied proper burials. Their bodies were buried in unmarked, shallow graves. It wasn't until 2016 that historians confirmed Proctor's Ledge as the site of the executions and makeshift burials, over 300 years later. The more you dig, the more obvious it becomes the Salem Witch Trials weren't really about witchcraft. They were about fear, about power, about punishing those who didn't conform. In many cases, being poor, widowed, or simply eccentric was enough to get you accused. Even things like having a mole or making someone uncomfortable could be used against you. Evidence included gossip, nightmares, and so-called spectral testimony, dreams or visions claimed as truth in court. Yes, you could be condemned for a dream someone had about you. It wasn't about justice, it was about silencing people who didn't fit the mold. You know, people just like us spooky ghouls. In 1702, the trials were formally condemned, and in 2001, the last accused victims were officially exonerated. But the emotional damage can't be undone, and the spiritual weight, some say it still hangs in the air over Salem. There are stories of voices in the wind, shadows that move, strange chills even on warm days. And yes, Giles Corey himself is still said to haunt the town. He's rumored to appear before moments of tragedy, his spirit serving as a warning. But that is a call he'll need to make himself on the haunted line another time. But before we close the file on Salem, there's still one mystery that haunts historians to this day. What actually happened with Betty and Abigail's wild behavior? Historians have been asking that same question for centuries, and while there's no definitive answer, there's a few fascinating theories. In 1976, a scientist named Linda Capriol proposed that the girls might have been poisoned by ergot, a fungus that grows on rye and can cause LSD-like hallucinations. But the theory has been largely debunked by the timing, symptoms, and spread because it didn't really line up. Some historians believe that the girls may have been suffering from repressed trauma or intense anxiety, living in a hyper-religious, high-pressure Puritan society where they were taught to fear eternal damnation. Yeah, it's possible that their minds and bodies reacted in a very big, very physical way. Another theory is that the girls who had almost no power in their community suddenly found themselves with all eyes on them. By accusing others, they gained attention, authority, and even a weird form of protection. And once it started, they couldn't stop it. The truth is, we may never fully know what was behind the girls' afflictions, but all of these theories offer something deeper than witches did it. They show just how complex and fragile human behavior can be under pressure. But before we ask the final question, I have to tell you something. I'm on the final draft of my first original horror short film, and if you've been loving these spooky stories, The Haunted Line is just the beginning. But to keep it ringing, I need a little ghoul support. You can join my Patreon for just $3 and help us feed the cast and crew, conjure up some killer practical effects, and make our spooky dreams come true. Plus, you'll get magical bonus perks, including a behind-the-scenes look at our filmmaking process. So join our Patreon at the link in the description and let's make horror history together. So now back to Salem. You may still be asking the question we've all wondered. Were they witches? No. There's no evidence that a single person executed in Salem practiced witchcraft. No potions, no spells, no covens. But if being a witch meant living boldly, challenging the norm, refusing to shrink yourself to make others comfortable, then yeah, they were witches. And if that's what makes someone a witch, then I guess you are too, you bold, unconforming, magical ghoul. As for me, if I wasn't a witch, would I be able to do this? Maybe she's magic, or maybe she just has a magical director. Jokes and hexes aside, this story may not have jump scares, but it just might be one of the scariest of all time, because it shows what fear of the misunderstood can do when it's left unchecked. I mean, it's kind of magical, isn't it? A town that condemned outcasts now celebrates the mystical, misunderstood, and strange. Salem was cursed by fear, but it thrives on spooky rebellion. And ghoul, oh ghoul, isn't it the best kind of karma that those who condemn the strange now rest in peace in the Witch City? Okay, maybe that's a little petty, but also, it's powerful. The people who died in Salem held onto their truth even when it cost them everything. And now, more than ever, I really wish that I can visit Salem one day to pay my respects, to honor the magic in being different. Because the truth is, being different, that's where the real power lives. Or as Agatha Cromwell once said, being normal is vastly overrated. And Anne Francis, she said it best. Being normal is not necessarily a virtue, it rather denotes a lack of courage. We might all be on different parts of our spooky journey, but here in the Ghoulster Squad, we've always got your back and you always have a spooky home. Let me know in the comments if you've ever visited Salem and if you experienced anything supernatural, or if it's still haunting your travel wish list like it is mine. If you love all things spooky, be sure to subscribe if you dare, because every Sunday we answer the haunted line and I share how I live my best spooky life every day. Until next time, sending you ghouls and kisses. Bye!